Here's a question I have. Will he finally hire an agent? Because he's basically in checkmate as it relates to not hiring an agent. Because if he's going to get this done, he's got to do it himself. Now, look, there are ways that you can still have somebody working in the shadows for you, and I believe it happens with other players. I think dummy email accounts are used to negotiate with teams where someone is pretending to be the player and they're not actually the player. It's somebody who isn't certified by the NFLPA who is working for the player. There are ways to do it. But at a certain point, the easiest thing to do is just throw your hands in the air and say, I'll hire an agent. And I was talking to somebody last night. There's a way he can do it, and we would never know if the NFLPA would cooperate. It was explained to me last night that he could hire an agent, and he could tell that agent, I don't want to sign the standard representation agreement, which is the document that is signed all the time between player and agent. It gets filed with the union. It becomes public then that this is the person who represents the player. There's no secret involved. But if the player doesn't want to sign the SRA, and the agent communicates that in writing to the league, not the league, but the union, that the player has chosen not to sign the agreement, but the player still wants me to represent him, and if the union goes along with it and keeps it quiet, there is a way it could happen. Now, good luck as a practical matter keeping any of the thousands of people who are covering the NFL on a regular basis from finding out. That would be the challenge. But there is a way. If he's motivated by not looking like he gave in to everyone saying you should get an agent, there is a way he can hire an agent and at least try to keep it secret. I doubt he'll be able to, but there's at least a path. If he finally has decided this is the only way I'm ever going to get out of this maze that leads me to the contract that I earned in the second year of my career and have been trying since the third season of my career ended to get this reward from the Ravens or from somebody.
Yeah, Mike, I think anything is possible now. Any face-saving measure is clearly possible now. But, when I was at the scouting combine, I remember we were sitting around, me and a few other people in the media talking about this, having a coffee one morning, and I just said, the other thing that an agent does, a good agent can frankly tell a player you're full of crap. And not all agents have that relationship with their player. So I wonder, even if an agent does come in and secretly or unsecretly begins to try to drum up business for Lamar Jackson, is someone who Lamar Jackson doesn't know going to be able to walk into his house in Florida and say, all right, Lamar, I don't know you. We've never met before, and I'm going to tell you what I think. This is a stupid proposition to go for a fully guaranteed contract, and here's why, and here's, in my opinion, what you should be aiming for. So let's aim for this. And my point is that, and again, obviously he's not going to say this is stupid, but he is going to get the point across that you're not going to get a fully guaranteed contract. So let's figure out what is logical and plausible that we can get and work on it from there. And Mike, I don't mean to say, hey, look at me, but I do want to revive something that I wrote a couple of weeks ago. And to me, it's the only sensible way to solve this, with agent, without agent. A 2 or 3 year fully guaranteed contract. I think the Ravens would basically say, hey, listen, Kirk Cousins got 3 for 84, fully guaranteed. And other than that, the only one is Deshaun Watson. And so what we should do is figure out a way, either 2 or 3 years, for a fully guaranteed contract, which I believe the Ravens would do. I'm guessing, but I think that the Ravens, if they didn't have to go for, say a 5-year deal, I think the Ravens would do this as a bridge to getting Lamar Jackson done. And the sales point for Lamar Jackson is you'd either at age 28 or 29 be a free agent again. And let's just say that they squabbled, didn't like it, all that other stuff. I'd say, okay, we won't tag you. And I know the Ravens don't want to do that. But for the sake of having him for the next 3 years and then planning for the future beyond that, if indeed that's what happens, that's what you do. But my whole thing is nothing is working now. So I think a fully guaranteed contract for a shorter term is the only way that a bridge can be built in this situation.
And here's the problem with that. Not that I have an issue with your idea, because it's a good idea. The problem with any deal other than the deal that Lamar wants could lead to an end result where Lamar isn't happy. And teams always want their players to be happy with their contracts. I don't think it's good for anybody for Lamar Jackson to capitulate and just throw his hands up and say, you win. I'll accept your offer. I just want this to be over with. But moving forward, he's not as happy as he would be or should be if he had gotten what he wanted. I wanted this and I didn't get it. I settled for this and I'm not happy. Because then you run the risk of more absences from practices and games because of stomach issues. If there's any influence over that reality from the fact that he doesn't have the contract that he loves, the knee injury that he didn't come back from last year. And I've said, and I support him on this, if you're less than 100% and you don't have your long-term contract, don't risk it, don't come back. You shouldn't. And your agent, if you had an agent, would say, hey, my client shouldn't be expected to go out there and play at less than 100% when this team has refused and failed to give him the long-term contract he deserves. So if he's not happy, that's a problem. You got to get him happy. And this leads back to your point about the agent, Peter. Part of the job of the agent is to get the contract that makes the player happy, to make the player feel happy about the contract he gets, and ultimately, as you said, to have a strategy to get it. The Deshaun Watson contract did not fall out of the sky. His agents engineered a situation where he was able to get it. And step one was having the willingness to be the villain and say, Houston Texans, I am never playing for you again. And the agent was the go-between for that. The agent was the pincushion for that. Hey, Texans, he's never playing for you again. That was the first domino. And through all of the crap that happened over the past 2 years, and obviously it's died down now over the past 8-9 months, but the off-field issue, the 20-plus lawsuits, even through all that, they got the contract that Deshaun Watson wanted. They constructed a strategy and implemented it. That's what a good agent does. And the good agent, as you said, also controls the client, Peter, and knows how to get the client to finally agree to the good advice the agent is giving him. It's not just go negotiate the best possible deal. It's then get your client to accept it. That was, when I was practicing law, I loved the clients who would defer to my advice. Hey, you're the expert. You know this. You do this all the time. If you think this is what we should do, this is what we'll do. That's what Lamar needs to have someone telling him. I've evaluated the situation. I've looked at all your options. This is your best option. This is what you should do. And Lamar Jackson happily agrees to it. That's what he's missing in not having an NFLPA certified agent, and a good one. There's bad ones, but it doesn't take many phone calls to find out which are the best agencies to go out and do a complicated quarterback contract.
There's one other point, Mike. I think that, you're one of the things that you just said really can't be underestimated. And that is, we're so far down the road now that if Lamar gets anything less, let's say the Ravens give him a 3-year fully guaranteed contract for 140 or something, whatever, an average per year that is more than Deshaun Watson. But it isn't exactly what Lamar Jackson wants. I'm reminded of a time late in the Brett Favre saga in Green Bay in 2008 when I was having a conversation with him, and he was basically determining that he was going to go up to Green Bay. Remember, He retires in March of 2008. He wants to come back. The Packers say, sorry, Aaron Rodgers is our guy. And if you want to play, we're not going to release you, because then you'd go to Minnesota or Chicago, which he would have done. We are going to trade you to another team. You tell us what team, and we'll trade you there. But so at that moment, Favre was convinced that if I just play hardball, if I hang tough, if I do this, and he asked me in the middle of this mayhem in 2008, he asked me, what do you think? And I said, Ted Thompson, who was the Packers general manager, will be hung in effigy in Green Bay if he releases you. So no matter how much you think that they owe you your release so you can go play wherever you want, Ted Thompson is the general manager of the Green Bay Packers. He isn't going to give you exactly what you want, but he'll trade you to, one of 27 or 28 teams. Pick a team. And so at that moment, and I got the feeling that all Favre was hearing from the people in his camp was, hang tough, hang in there. They'll release you. They'll release you. And I said, to me, I think that's crazy. I've talked to Ted Thompson. I've talked to Mike McCarthy. They're not releasing you. And so that's sort of, in a way, what this reminds me of, that there's nobody, I don't think, in Lamar Jackson's camp who is telling him, it's not apples to apples, you and Deshaun Watson. It just isn't. It's a different story because of your injury situation. That's all there is to it. And unfortunately, he doesn't have people who are telling him that. And I'm not saying that I convinced Favre to do anything, because I didn't. But he just asked me what I thought. And I said, I think you're nuts if you think that the Packers are going to release you. And quite honestly, there need to be people who love and respect and care for the future of Lamar Jackson, who will simply be honest with him. And I don't know. I don't know who he's talking to, Mike, but it doesn't sound like he's got anybody in his camp telling him the unvarnished truth.
And I think it's more than just pointing to the injury history and saying this is why teams don't want to give you a 5-year fully guaranteed contract. The reality is Deshaun Watson managed either deliberately or inadvertently to line up the planets in a way that got the Browns sufficiently desperate after they had pissed off Baker Mayfield. And the Browns were the first one out of the 4 finalists, Falcons, Panthers, Saints, Browns, and they decided, screw it, let's put together an offer he won't refuse. How about 5 years, fully guaranteed, $245 million? Let's do it. Let's make that offer. And they swooped back around, and they did it. So that's the thing that an agent would explain to Lamar. It doesn't just fall out of the sky. I believe that Lamar has consistently thought that everything he wants is just going to be handed to him. I shouldn't have to negotiate. I was the MVP in my second season. I'm one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I shouldn't have to go out and have give and take and back and forth. They should just give me what I want. I feel like that's been underpinning all of this. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.